All right, let's talk about protein bioavailability and quality and discuss if it actually matters, and if so, when does it matter for your body composition and muscle mass. All right, so this is a topic with quite a bit of nuance, so I'm going to try to make it as simple as possible for the audience. Okay, I'm going to try to make it simple for you guys. There's a lot of really outdated, and I mean extremely outdated information out there talking about complete versus incomplete proteins, but we need to be clear. That has not been considered accepted science in more than 20 years, possibly even further back. The problem is that it's a throwback to some very old ideas, things that weren't fully being measured in the lab with modern technology. So we need to be clear. Almost every protein that you consume, like that we have access to, unless we kind of made it through some processes like gelatin, which is again highly refined animal source, it is a complete protein, meaning all 20 amino acids are present and all 8 of the essential amino acids are present. Okay, what we need to be clear about is when it comes to protein quality, there's a couple of things that you have to look at. What we look at is the ratios of those, right? So how complete is the score, right? And again, they tend to be pretty balanced, with some proteins being slightly better there, meaning some of them might be a little low in leucine or valine or whatever, but they're not super low in it. They're still sufficient amounts. And what we consider for the higher quality is when some of the key essential amino acids are higher than average. Okay, they're not balanced, they're above average. So it's stuff like the branched chain amino acids, which we need to be clear, supplementing them does not work. That has been completely debunked in meta-analysis. It's not useful at all to add extras into your diet. But what we do note is that when it's in the matrix of a complete protein, we sometimes get a slightly stronger anabolic signal gram for gram from those protein sources that are a little higher in them. So again, it's a little complex. So we have that, and then we have to look at digestibility and absorption. So when we start looking at the total quality of protein and you look at the different scores like the BVAA score, that is what they are looking at, of how high of a completeness, because they're all complete. We need to be clear. They all usually have sufficient amounts of the things we're looking for, but we don't absorb protein 100% efficient. The only stuff that we seem to are the slightly more refined ones, like cooked eggs, whey protein, things like that. Okay, that's the ones that we have like 100% absorption of. For the others, it's a little bit lower, right? Depending upon the matrix of it. Like some meat proteins, we don't fully absorb 100%. It's above 90. There are going to be plant proteins that are only in that 70% range. But here's the problem with that. Where that gets complicated is that it depends on the person's gut health. Okay? And that is really a big wild card. So when people say, well, how much of this percentage do you absorb? Well, I don't know. How healthy is your gut flora? So again, when people are looking for exact numbers, well, exactly how much of that plant protein do I absorb? I don't know. What's your gut health look like? Because we are reliant upon the ability of our GI tract and our gut flora to ferment a little bit of that and break the fibers and stuff down further to absorb more of it. See why that gets complicated? Because that one protein for one person might be 80% absorption, and for another it might only be 65%, literally from the exact same food. So there's going to be a genetic component. There's going to be a gut flora health component. All right, so here's the thing that we look at. This matters when protein is fairly low, right? Obviously, because it's not that any of the things we're getting from the protein is more anabolic from one for another. It comes down to what is our net load, like how many total grams of the various combined essential amino acids are we getting into our bloodstream. All right, that is what we are looking at. Okay, so when we talk about protein intake and we make recommendations, this is why some studies are slightly different than others when it shows muscle growth caps. Okay, because the proteins can be a little different. So when we give general protein recommendations, what we're trying to essentially do is reach those numbers. So when we see studies that show that up to 1.5 or 1.6 grams per kilogram of body weight, so for someone like me, around 150 grams of protein, that is where muscle growth caps and muscle protein synthesis beyond that. But it can be as low as like 1.2, so even 120 grams. Okay. If it's on that low end, it's because you consumed higher quality proteins. All right, so let's be clear. 120 versus 150 grams of protein could give you the exact same net effect on intake and protein synthesis if the absorption and bioavailability are slightly different, okay? Because all we're looking at is that net effect. That's why this gets complicated. So essentially, the higher quality the protein is on that score, the less of it that we need to reach our maximal muscle protein synthesis. So say whey protein at 100 grams a day, like if that was the only protein that you ate was whey protein or cooked egg whites, those ones that have those 100 plus bioavailability scores, you probably wouldn't get any benefit from adding any further protein to your diet. So you could eat almost nearly zero protein foods. And even though people might say, well, that's only 100 grams. Yeah, but it's the equivalent of 150 grams of more mixed protein in terms of the net effect. So you see where we're going with this? The bioavailability, so when people say, well, should I focus on those? Well, sure you can, but if you're getting higher protein intakes, if you're in that 140, 150 gram a day range, and let's say you weigh, 200 pounds or 90 kilos, the protein quality is going to be almost irrelevant because your net total load of those amino acids is high. But if you're only eating 100 grams a day, all right, or 90 grams a day, then that protein quality is going to absolutely affect your muscle growth and muscle protein synthesis. So when people ask, well, does it matter? Should I focus on it? Should I care? The answer is it depends on how much protein you're eating. If you're eating a certain threshold of it, if you're reaching those upper limits of how much we see muscle growth benefits stop at, then no, it probably doesn't matter at all because you're getting everything you need. But if it is on the lower end, again, if you're at 100 grams a day and you're trying to maximize muscle growth, yeah, it's absolutely going to matter. It is absolutely going to matter. So that score and that quality of the protein does become important on the lower end. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I'll talk to you guys and gals next time.